Well, today we have Andi from Rimrock Flower Farm. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're super excited to have you because we love your flowers and also that, it's sustainable from a flower farm and it's so cool. They're grown here in Montana.
Local. Yeah. Everything that you do goes right back into the local economy and stuff. And I mean, we've worked with you before on projects in which we've loved and we literally rave about you and all the Montana Cut Flower Association. Like I literally am like that website is on our vendors list. So like if it's not, we're not here, then we are like referring to other flower farms because we love everything Montana. So, and we like love to shop local. And but we would love to hear about how you got into flower farming.
Okay. So, my husband and I were always big gardeners. So that was kind of by default. And then I, of course, stumbled across flower farming on Instagram, like a lot of people do, I think. And, I had never thought before, where are flowers coming from? How do they even get to the grocery store? I think most people don't even think about that. Yeah. And so I didn't know either until I found this account it was Floret, like everyone knows who Floret is now. And I said, gosh, I don't know anyone that does that here in Montana. And I did some digging and found out there was a lot of people that do it in Montana, maybe not in eastern Montana, and not in our area. And so I said, you know what, let's make this a go. We know how to garden pretty well. And so flowers are really not very much different than growing vegetables. So we planted this really tiny little space. I mean, I don't even think it was a 32nd of an acre, however you say that. Really tiny. I mean, just probably like 12 50-foot rows. And took them, we started a little farmer's market in Roundup, which is where I'm from, and took them to the farmer's market, and people kind of were like me and were like, how are you growing these? Where did these come from? We're very excited. And so every year since then, 2020 was our first official season. And since then we've kind of grown physically with adding more field space and more greenhouses, but definitely grown business-wise also, kind of finding where our niche is. Do we stay with the farmer's market? Do we do retail? Do we do wholesale, selling to other florists?
Right.
We dabbled a little bit in weddings that second season, and that was it. I was like, this is where we're meant to be, creating these beautiful florals for couples and being able to put the flowers into our creative space. Kind of just was a perfect fit. So since then, we're just kind of full season or, full blown into weddings now. We do some retail so people can order flowers and for special occasions, and we deliver and stuff like that. But weddings are our number one now.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
So more than just growing flowers on a wedding, like you're doing the design of all the different pieces, bouquet and other pieces too. Like, do you have a background in design, or how did you go about being so good at doing that and learning to do that
because we love everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I have no background in floral design. I think you do have to have an artistic side to you anyways. Right. And so you have to have that as a default. And so then what better to practice than having a flower farm? And so that really is, in order to practice, you're taking courses online. I have done a few of those, but really the every single day, hands on your stems and knowing them really well, flower farming is incredible because you know exactly how that flower is going to perform in the field when you're cutting it. Then we've got a whole process of what you do with the flower after you cut it. And so really just being able to practice with those flowers every single day and see how they're reacting in the harsh sunlight or if they've been out of water for several hours. And then, of course, the design part of it. Do these colors go well together? I studied, color theory a little bit, but it's really just the hands-on stuff that makes it go faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So how many wedding seasons have you had at this point?
This is our fifth growing season, this will be our fourth wedding season.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
Yeah. Last year was our first full season where we're just booking kind of any date. The year before that was our trial. So we were still doing a little bit of farmer's market. And I think I only did maybe 5 weddings the year before that. And then last year, I think we did, over a dozen. And this year, probably about the same.
Yeah. And I think I know this, but like just to share with everybody.
Yeah.
But so when you do weddings, do you grow everything that's in the bouquet, or do you order in things? What does that look like?
Yeah. So what I will always tell my potential clients in our little meeting is, we are a farmer florist, which is not a super common, people don't know what that means. But what it means is I'm a florist 365. And then, of course, once we're getting into our season, which is about May through September, October, then we are pulling most of our product from our farm. I always kind of encourage them to really lean into the seasonality of what we grow. Everything is super unique, and we pick varieties that are really rare that you can't necessarily get
Right, you can't ship
on an open flower market. And so I do suggest that they're just giving us some creative freedom to use the things that we grow. Of course, if there's something that is not within the color palette, or if it's a date that's outside of our season, then we kind of are more of a traditional florist where we're ordering a lot of stuff in. But I do try to, probably because I'm just familiar with it, I try to order in product that we also grow. Yeah. So maybe it's not in season in Montana, but it's in season somewhere else that we can bring in, and we're familiar with how it works. And
That's super cool. And I love that, because I do feel like it also gives it a timeless look, where like if you're going with really trendy flowers or really trendy greenery, you can be like, oh, I know when that was taken. I know. Yeah. But when you go with something local, I feel like it just adds this timeless look, because like it's been grown here in Montana, for years, or like, it's just that timeless thing.
Oh, absolutely. So. Yeah. And the nice thing about the product being grown here is that it's so fresh. It is so, you're getting closer to perfect. It's something that is maybe grown in South America, it was harvested 3 or 4 weeks before it's even landing at a florist. It's probably been out of water for however many days, maybe weeks. And those flowers are bred for that. They're not bred for, they're bred for color, of course, but a lot of that plant breeding is to be out of water and still be able to hold up and get to that florist on time. And the flowers varieties that we choose are bred for color and their petal structure. They've got hundreds of petals, and they're ruffly, and they smell good.
Yes.
A lot of plant breeding, when they are bred to be out of water, that part of that genetics has been removed. And so you get a rose, and maybe it has a little bit of smell, but not anything like something you could get local.
That's something huge that we found when we've worked with you or other local farmers.
Yeah.
Like it's not even comparable.
No.
Yeah. And like you literally can walk by the like flora flowers and it just smells so fresh and beautiful, where that's not the case when with traditional flowers.
Well, besides flowers like being bred to last a long time, there's also a lot of like chemicals and pesticides that are used, right? That you don't really use.
Yeah, so we save kind of some kind of conventional practices for the very last result. If we're going to lose our season to grasshoppers, then of course, maybe we're going to go out and do something about it, but we're doing everything preventative. So what that looks like is we do a deep dive into horticulture, and we're using products that are really good for the environment. And then, of course, by default, if they're good for the environment, they're good for our clients. Right. You can put it on a cake and not be worried about it. Imported flowers they have to come in through customs. And so they cannot take any chance of some sort of bacteria coming in, a pest coming in. So everything is fogged with chemicals to make sure that anything is dead except for the rose, coming in. Ours is looking like We use worm castings. None of this is glamorous. Worm castings to feed the soil, or we're doing a foliar, like a leaf spray of compost tea. And that's really enhancing the microbiology in the soil and in those plants to try and keep them as healthy as possible. It's really hard for a pest to digest plant material that's really healthy. Pests will always be drawn to an unhealthy plant. They do emit a gas, and those bugs can smell them out from a mile away. And so they're always going to be going for a plant that's not so healthy.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah. And so we really try to, have really, really high plant health. And that does seem to help quite a bit.
Well, and that like translates. If your plants are healthy, they're going to look good. They're going to look beautiful.
They're going to perform.
All of that translates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's been fun to have conversations with some of the cake bakers around this area too. None of us are experts in each other's fields.
Right.
And so having conversations with a bakery and saying, okay, let me give you a list of flowers that are toxic, and maybe don't put those
on the cake.
We're not putting those in the cake, or maybe you're using like a little piece of saran wrap or something on that stem when you're pushing it into the cake. I've seen many flowers go onto cakes that are not
safe.
Not only are, they're very not safe. Delphinium, which is blue. Blue is a very popular requested wedding flower. And they're highly toxic. And so, just kind of being able to have that conversation too.
That's super interesting. Which, I mean, that goes back to like, I think we were talking a little bit earlier about this before the camera started, but why you hire professionals. Not only because I would have never known to not put delphinium, because also blue is my favorite color, so obviously I love delphinium.
Yes.
I would have never known not to put that on the cake. And also like bakers, like they have to do their research with that, and they need that. So is there something like DIY flowers? I feel like are so big right now.
Yes.
We've had a lot of brides in the past do that, and well, it does, that it would appear it saves money, but like, do you wish that people knew more about that?
So I can testify from experience, because a million years ago when I got married, I was a DIY bride, and we did do a destination wedding to Missoula. We were living in California at the time and got married here in Montana. And so we're thinking, yes, we're going to save all this money by doing the flowers ourselves, and this is what it looked like. And I think this is still, to this day, this is what this looks like. You are scrambling around trying to find flowers. How are you getting those flowers there? You're shipping them in, and then what are we going to do with them? So you've got to have a plant transporting buckets of water. Then you're making your arrangements yourself. Where are those going to stay? Are they in a nice, cool area? Are you putting them in a refrigerated space, and then the refrigerator gets too cold and damages them, or there's fruit in the fridge that's putting off a gas that's making your flowers crash or drop petals really quickly. And then, of course, there's the time and labor. So when you're doing a DIY flower package yourself, the line item that you're saving is labor, because you would have been paying a florist to do that. And that labor is still getting done by you and your family and your friends, who I know now, like I said, from experience, was not the funnest on, the day before the wedding. And then, it's kind of like sucking out a little bit of the joy and relaxation of being able to enjoy other things. It is just work. It's
every vendor we've talked to on this podcast, and almost all of our brides that have been DIY brides too, the thing that we take away from all of it is it's not worth the stress. If you don't hire a professional, it's going to be put on you, and then instead of being able to just sit back and enjoy your friends and family, you are being the one who has to do that. Right. You don't want to work on your wedding day.
You're the worker.
Your family shouldn't have to work on your wedding day.
Yeah, even
they should be able to
even if it's not you doing the work, it's usually a close friend or family member that then isn't able to be there with you and support you, and it's and especially moms. I feel like that's one thing we've gotten feedback from our brides.
my mom didn't get to enjoy my wedding day. My mom didn't enjoy my wedding day.
Right.
'Cause she was literally
Same.
doing most things. So
Now your mom hates weddings.
yeah, my mom.
Oh, does she?
We talked about this. We talked about this multiple times on here. She does not like weddings. Because she did.
She's scorned.
Yeah, like out of the 4 of us siblings, she did almost everything for all but like my oldest brother and because her family did most of it.
Yeah.
And she just it's a thing to get over with for my family. It's like you check the boxes. There's not a lot of personalization other than maybe your colors, maybe, and that's also dependent on like what is available. And so it's not a thing to be like in my family. It's not a joyful thing,
Right.
which is because we've
Yeah.
done everything DIY.
Yeah.
Where we found so much joy when people have hired, and yes, it's an expense, and
Of course.
and you have to be able to do what's in your means. But we found, and I don't know if you can speak to this, it's like invest in it and go for, maybe buying, like really good florals, but maybe having less tables and less guests, or like,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know.
You hit it on the head. I think if there were like a how-to book of how to plan your own wedding, it should be right at the top. More guests equals more money.
Yeah.
That it's going to cost you and your family, or whoever's
Yeah.
helping you fund that. And yeah, whenever we do a consultation, I'll always tell people, especially if they're mentioning DIY, make a rank of all the things that are super important to you. And the things that you're going to DIY, those are going to go, put them at the bottom of the list. Yeah. If your cake is not super important to you, that's at the bottom. Maybe your Aunt Susan is making the cake. If flowers are not important to you, then maybe those are going at the bottom of the list of something to DIY. Obviously, there's a lot of value in hiring a florist. Obviously, I'm always going to champion that. But if it's, if it's a 5 for you, maybe like we're not the florist for you. Maybe that is a DIY situation. And then,
Yeah. I tell my brides, if I were to prioritize, like go back and redo our wedding, mine would be flowers, my dress, and my photographer. We did have a really great family friend that did our wedding pictures, but we definitely underpaid her, and I like think about that all the time. But
Something we regret.
But yeah, and those are like my biggest regrets that I didn't invest in. If we could go back, we would 100% just elope and just use all that money to invest into. Like,
well, flowers are just one thing that can elevate any space. And so, yeah, we recommend if there's something to cut in the budget, that it not be flowers.
For sure.
Also, this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, is fake versus real. Because I think I have fake flowers. I have my bouquet. It's literally never come out. Like, I think only time I ever look at it is when we've moved houses, and I'm like, what is in this
There it
box?
is again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what is, that's my bouquet. And like, that was something that my mom was like, oh, but you'll get to keep it forever. And I'm like, I don't look at it, and I won't throw it away.
It's a fake bouquet, though, that doesn't look nice. And
No.
so, like, we get
and
it
it's
forever,
dusty
but it's like...
and sad.
Yeah.
And I still spent quite a bit of money on those fake flowers.
Yep.
But I never look at it. And I look at my pictures and I'm like, I won't hang that up in my house.
Right. I know. And that's what's tricky is you really have, brides or couples have to do this deep dive into pricing things out. And they're never going to see what the price per stem is because as a florist, like, we're not going to get that information. It's not in good business for anyone to do that. But if they were to see maybe what it costs, they do see the price per stem for a silk flower, and it's really not much different than a real flower. And a lot of them say, okay, well, I'm gonna just sell all the stuff afterwards. Well, that Facebook Marketplace is a little flooded with everyone that's trying to sell off their stuff.
Right.
And so, fake versus real. Of course, I am always gonna say, like, maybe just save for one more year to do real flowers, because you are absolutely right. The visual impact of your day is so much different if you have really great florals.
And you can always tell.
Oh, yes.
They can be the highest quality,
Yep.
but also if you go higher quality, they're off.
Then you're
they will be
more.
way
Yeah,
more.
then you're more
Yeah,
than
and they're
fresh.
way more than
They are
fresh.
never going to look real.
No. I haven't had to really implement this too much, but we do have a little bit of a rule. If we are going to come on and be the designer for your day and do these incredible florals, we do not want to be mixing. We don't want you to, as the bride, to be bringing in some fake ones. And I try and say this as gently as possible to our clients, but they just never look, they are never going to look good together.
Right.
This maybe peach peony or peach poppy that you got from Hobby Lobby is never going to match this one.
Right.
And so it's always going to stick out like a sore thumb, especially in your pictures. And
I'm not saying, and I don't think you are either, to say like, oh, you don't have real flowers.
Of course not. No.
But because I was a fake flower bride.
Right.
Like I understand budget. I understand that.
Totally.
But at the same time, you are losing that visual elegance that there's not even a word for how much of a difference I feel it makes.
Yeah. This kind of speaks a little bit to my design style, which is very much, I see the plants every day. It is our total life. We are in the plants every single day. So we see how they move with the wind. We see their growing habit on the plant in the fields. And so we kind of try and mimic that in our designs of, does this look very natural and garden-esque and like I walked out and picked it and put it in your I really did, but we want it to look like that.
Yeah.
And you just can't get it with anything else other than a real flower. You can try and mimic that with some silk flowers, but it's never going to be the real thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm a little bit, if there was any other part of the wedding industry that I am like obsessed with, it's flowers.
Yes.
If you didn't know
you
that,
would be great. Yeah.
I love flowers.
If photography ever, dwindles, you know where to go.
Well, yeah,
Just
even
for
for,
me,
for
like,
everything.
yeah,
we
but-
recommend like having a bouquet for your engagement session.
Yes,
even,
we
and
do.
stuff.
And
absolutely.
Because it's just it literally, flowers will elevate anything.
Yeah. And I think you can, if you had you don't need to go super grand, but if you had the right pieces, I feel like you could get away with doing less of maybe something else. Maybe you're not having all of the chargers and the really beautiful napkins and the candle holders and everything. If you had to cut a few things out to be able to afford maybe a larger piece on each table, floral-wise.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
a difference.
It does.
It really does. Yeah, it like in the way it looks, the client experience, or not the client experience, the guest experience.
Absolutely.
Because that at the end of the day, like, that's what isn't that what a wedding should be about? Is like about, celebrating your love in a way that everyone enjoys.
Absolutely.
And when you have these beautiful, lovely smelling flowers at the table, that's going to elevate that experience so much.
Yeah. And then being able to say, oh, they are grown right here 40 miles north of our venue. I don't know about you guys, but we have quite a few people that are doing destination weddings here, even in the Billings area.
Yeah.
And what more Montana to be able to say like, oh, even our flowers.
Yeah, our flowers are here.
from
No,
Montana.
it's awesome.
Yeah. So just makes it more special. And even kind of talking about as they're walking in, you're walking into your venue and what are you seeing first, or what are your guests seeing first? You want them and yourself to have this like, wow, this is beautiful and amazing. And so we're telling people, maybe we're cutting out some bud vases or something that's maybe we're not seeing right when we're walking in, but we're having statement pieces right when we're walking down the aisle or right when we're walking into the reception area.
Yeah, and the nice thing about those statement pieces is that they can be reused in other places.
Yeah.
That's, your whatever's on your arch, or if you have even a ground, what are those called?
Meadow arrangements.
Meadow arrangement.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like even that, like those can be pulled and put in different places and make a huge impact.
Oh yeah.
And like sometimes they even look like totally different flowers because they're placed different. And it's amazing.
Oh yeah. We do that. I would say 95% of our weddings are doing that. But it's, if you're spending several $100s on a piece for, like a semicircle of an arch rather than, a rental, you've got 4 or 5 large pieces right there to go and, I don't know if you need a ton more than that.
Right.
I mean, you could.
You can.
Sky's the limit, of course. But,
right.
I mean, that's a big impact. 5 large arrangements, scattered throughout, your bar or if you have a band.
Yeah.
Head table.
It's amazing. So, you are based in Roundup.
Yep.
How far do you travel for weddings?
Right. We do have Bozeman this year, and we did Bozeman 2 years ago. I would love to stay more in the Billings area. And so maybe in the future, we're 99% of the time we're in Billings or Red Lodge is in this area. I only have one in Bozeman this year. And it's just a long haul.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of product you have to take and all the logistics of moving flowers. And so that makes sense.
Yeah. But I love this area. Bozeman has a lot. They have tons of options, and
there's not a lot in Billings around.
There's
in
really
terms
not.
Of, especially locally grown flowers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's like only a couple of you that grow. Here,
yeah.
So. Yeah.
So one thing I was thinking about, like a reason people might choose fake flowers is because they get to keep them, whatever. Like maybe you can talk about what are some things people can do if they do want to keep sake of something from their bouquet or whatnot when they have real flowers.
It is. Have you guys seen it? It's a huge trend right now to preserve your flowers, or at least we've seen it in the last few years. We started offering a pressed flower, like framed glass piece to only our brides.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's been a really fun, especially a really fun, like artistic avenue for me. And then they do live on, which is really amazing. That pressing flowers, it's not for the faint of heart. It just has a lot of room for error. And so we press a ton of flowers. Like if we know we're doing a piece for a bride and we need 20 blooms, we're saving 60 just to have, to make sure that they're all, we have enough to do the piece. But cool. So it could be something like that. It could be a lot of, I don't do this yet, a lot of florists will do in silica gel, the little packets. So silica gel, if you're actually putting the whole flower into a toe of it, it preserves it perfectly.
That's so cool.
The color, the petal, everything. I think so cool. Maybe they're a little, you got to be careful with them, of course.
Right.
But then you could do a 3-dimensional piece or even like a bouquet or an arrangement out of those. And if you don't want to do either of those, because there, it is a ton of labor, so a little bit more on the expensive side of preservation, I hang dry everything. Even if I've never done it before, take your bouquet, hang it upside down in a closet, a dark, dry place. And they're not all gonna look good, but a lot of them will.
Yeah.
And so at least you've got, a little something. You could hire a professional, but
I have one of our brides. She dried hers and then she put them all, just the heads, in a shadow box. Yeah. Then had a photo of her actual bouquet in front of it. It was so cool.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah. Like, I love that you're offering the pressed flowers, though. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. I saw one. I actually just spoke with the groom last week about something else, and he was saying that his wife took my flowers and she sent them off somewhere else. And then they did the silica gel and did it into epoxy. And it was in the letter of their last name. And so that was like a really cutie little thing that they had on their nightstand or wherever they had it.
So do you base what you grow, like as far as like color variety, off of what your couples ask for? And like, how does that look like? How far out do you recommend to?
That's a great question. So we're not doing consultations or bookings yet for 25, but that really is how far out we look. We started doing consultations for this year in July of last year. A lot of stuff we have to order from our supplier a year in advance. So,
Gotcha.
for example, if we want to have tulips next year in 2024, we are ordering them right now for bulb delivery in the fall or late summer. We're planting them for early spring bloom of 24 or 25.
Yeah.
And so we really are planning that far out. Luckily, we got almost fully booked going into like December, which is when we do a lot of our planning. It's in our off season. So we kind of slow down, do all the seed planning and crop planning. And you really have to work backwards. So you take this color palette, let's say it's peach, blue, and white. And so you take this color palette, okay, well, when is their date? And then we have to cross-reference that to all of our field notes. What is blooming in late May? And then what could we potentially take from that list of bloomers that we can get in a white, blush, and blue? And so that was a really big challenge this year because we are really trying to lean into growing as much as we can for the weddings rather than having to order, some stuff in to supplement. We're really trying to use everything from our farm that we can.
I love that.
Yeah, but one thing I did want to mention that I would kind of tell brides, and I've never really had an issue with this. We've been really lucky to have brides that seek us out that have some flexibility in, going into it. In their mind, they're like, hand over the reins and say, this is my color palette, do what you will with it. And that's one thing that I would kind of recommend to all brides. It makes it so easy if you're hiring a florist to say, let's agree on a color palette, something that I really love, maybe 5 colors, 5 main colors. Maybe we're doing like 50% in these 3 and the other 50% these other 2-3 colors. But ultimately, I give you creative freedom to make something really beautiful. And of course, you're finding maybe a floral artist that you love their design aesthetic and you trust. But giving them that palette, and then as a designer, we're taking those colors and maybe we've got a really saturated pink color and then a really muted peach color. We can't just shove those together. There's got to be some bridge color in between. And those bridge colors are something that wasn't on our consultation where we signed this contract and said, here's our colors. And so you want to give your florist some wiggle room. And know that on the day of, you're not walking in and you're looking for that bubblegum pink. If it's 2 shades off, that 2 shades is not going to ruin your wedding day. Well, it's still super beautiful, and
sometimes those transition pieces I find are the prettiest.
I know,
because they make everything feel cohesive.
Absolutely,
if it's 2 shades off, and also you can only control what flowers come out so much through breeding and stuff, but there's also nuance to that. And
absolutely, and so we have I wouldn't say blunt. Blunt is not the word, but I'm a very forward person where in our consultations, we get it all out in the open. There's no surprises. Your expectations are, I'm going to try and fill them as best I can, but also understand that I think we get away with it a little more because we are a farm. And so people know, okay, you're growing these things, you're growing these flowers.
You're not just ordering exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think they should give them a little leeway with a traditional florist too, Yeah.
Well, and with traditional florists, they might even have a harder time, I feel like, because they have to rely on shipping. And things can happen in shipping, or like, I don't know if it's still happening, but I know in like 2020, they were literally dumping flowers into the ocean because they couldn't, there was strikes, and now like there's people not planting, and so they might have a harder time even sourcing your colors than like a farm that they already know what they're going to plant. You get to control it from A to Z, kind of a deal. Yeah,
absolutely. You're still seeing issues with that, and post COVID, there were a lot of farms that went under because the wedding industry just came to a halt, and you know, a lot of them just did not bounce back from that. And so not only are there less farms, the prices like this, everything's more expensive. And so back when maybe you could get away with doing a wedding for a couple $1,000 in florals, the prices are just so high now. And so, yeah, that's why it's funny because I am kind of very much leaning away from doing wholesale, growing and selling to florists, but that's where we started. And so we've got a handful of amazing people here in the Billings area that were kind of with us from day one. And so we will always sell flowers to them if they need it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And like helping each other out, that community. And
you have to, you got to have friends in low places.
Are there any other misconceptions that you feel like a lot of brides have or some of your clients have had in the past when it comes to florals or floral design?
Gosh, I don't think anything that we haven't already really touched on. Yeah, maybe just that DIY is like maybe not the cheaper route necessarily. You're maybe you save $1,000 on labor, but then
the emotional cost, the stress, because there's cost to that.
Oh my gosh, it's well over $1,000. To be stressing about that, and probably just that. There's just flowers. Wedding flowers specifically, they have to be perfect. This is not an arrangement that you are sending your grandma and like maybe the sunflower is not looking so fabulous, but grandma's really excited about this. So like the one missing petal or the little blemish is maybe acceptable. We try not to do that, but wedding flowers really have to be perfect. And to get those flowers to that level, to where they are looking really perfect, is something that we have spent a lot of years educating ourselves on, whether that's with online courses or really just testing everything, hands-on experience. And of course, then like the day of disasters, when you've put things together and you drive there and you get a flat tire and then you're sitting on the side of the road with flowers in the back of your car, or you are showing up to the day of and someone forgot to order a boutonniere for Grandpa Joe. And those are all things that your professional that you hired are so familiar with, and they are going to problem solve that, and no one is ever going to know that anything went wrong. Where something like that, if you were DIYing, is really ruining your day.
And it's not just about the design expertise, which is huge. Because,
of course.
Like, there's things that I'm like, I'll show up to a wedding, I'll be like, yep, those stems were not trimmed, so I know that was not a professional that put that together. Or they're very awkwardly long.
I know. Yeah, just all the little.
It's fine, and it's things that like I've only learned from being in the wedding industry. I would have never known the things that you needed to do. But that's something that I wanted, is care, because I mean part of that is the stems being trimmed so that they can drink. But what is care look like? What would you like your brides to do as far as caring for their florals on the wedding day?
Okay, on wedding day, typically I do a few a la carte packages where they can pick up the day before, like on a Friday for a Saturday, and we'll send them out with a little care package. Typically, we are installing and delivering on a Saturday morning, and so I will always give my clients a run through of how to hold the bouquet. We're holding it forward so that the photographers are getting like the best view of the flowers. At belly button level, so that we're not covering our face. And then that bouquet is going right back in that vase of water. The minute the flower is out of water, the bottom of the stems are callousing. They're kind of creating like a little, I shouldn't say scab on air.
But no, that's the worst. But that is what it is.
They really are callousing. We'll say callus. Callousing over, and that is going to block. You're putting them back in, and then that's going to block them from drinking some more water. And so that's where they're kind of they're going downhill for every minute that they're out of water. And so I always tell them, if you're taking it out for pictures, someone in your bridal party is following you, and we're bringing that vase with you, and they're going back in between, especially if there's a long period of time between shoots. They've got to go back in. And then If they are picking it up the day before, or even if you're DIYing, you're keeping it in a air-conditioned, dark-ish space. We don't want any direct sunlight. We are treating these flowers like a little carton of ice cream. And so we're not putting them in the hot car. We're not putting them in a hot room or in front of a window. We're just trying to kind of preserve their life. And so, you're really just trying to give them the best chance.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're planning on preserving them, then you're really babying them.
Yes.
Then you're really taking care of, you're not setting it on its side where the petals are getting smushed, because it's got to go right back to the designer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we live in Montana, and it's a land of extreme weather.
Yes.
So what is like the lowest that you feel like flowers can be out? Because I know that they're like, I've heard a few different things from a few different florists. And then what is like, if it's hot, like how long do you recommend it even be out, or like things like that?
So on our plan on day of, on a Saturday, if the day is going to be hot, we do have kind of some things that we do to help them give their best shot. We're showing up and doing installs a little bit as late as we possibly can, closer to the ceremony time. If they're in direct sunlight and it's 100 degrees out, we're going to have a rough time anyways. Normally, at least we can know what our chances of that happening are based on what our dates are that we're booking. If it's at the end of July, we know it's going to be hot, and there are certain flowers that you are absolutely not going to use in a meadow arrangement or an arch piece or something that's going to, maybe we're using them inside in the air-conditioned reception area, but we're not using them outside because we know the minute they're in that direct sunlight for an hour, they're going to be looking real sad. We don't ever want that. So we're picking hardier, a little tougher varieties. Roses are pretty bulletproof. So bringing in roses, or the other thing that we do is on an arch piece, if we know they're going to be out there for a long time, maybe we are doing these little water tubes that we're putting the stems into so that they always have a water source. If we know the client is going to repurpose that piece, like cut off the zip ties and repurpose it, maybe we're not using something like that. So kind of knowing what we're going to be dealing with ahead of time is the best course of action.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What about the cold? Is there a certain amount where you just...
Gosh, I really try not to do too many bookings once it starts, when the snow flies. But by then, the couples are usually doing indoor everything anyways. There aren't a lot of flowers that can handle some freezing temperatures. We keep our cooler at about 36, 37. Once they're getting under freezing, you've got all their cells are bursting. And so, just keeping them indoors is really kind of your only option if you're going to do a more winter wedding or even into the fall here. If you know you're going to
there can be a freeze
for
in
sure.
the fall at night especially or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that could be just another thing. Let's say you're doing a late September wedding. It could be gorgeous. It could be freezing. And so maybe that's a situation too where if you're doing outdoors, you're always having a plan B. We always have to have a plan B,
yes,
right?
Always.
And maybe we're not doing outdoor florals. I don't know. Yeah. You always run a risk,
Yes.
Yeah. Or let's say that is the case. Or like, that's what we're doing. We're not bringing it indoors. We're going to do this wedding outdoors no matter what. Then maybe it's a case of you're hiring on your florist to stay on site all day as protection, that you are going to have a professional there. And that is what we're used to, is being able to jump in and move things around. We've had, Montana, we're more worried about the crazy thunderstorm that's going to roll in the afternoon at 4 o'clock when all the weddings are.
Always.
And so that's the case where we are, we're using like we're bringing all the tools out of the tool bag to make sure that things aren't blowing over, stems aren't flying off the arch. And then maybe we are suggesting that you hire us to stay on for the day to make sure that if things need to be like grabbed and ran and brought inside, we're there to do that.
Yeah. Take care.
Yeah.
Are there any, this kind of last question, are there any trends that you're excited for going in the new year?
Yes.
Kind of in the floral world, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So we started booking, like I said, last year, and I would say over 90% of our clients have used the word garden party. And
cool.
thank you, Pinterest, for setting that up for us. This is literally what we grow. You are speaking my language. And so we have tons of color, tons of natural looking arrangement. So maybe it's something that's like has moss at the base of its vase, or has textural elements, or beautiful, big, ruffly garden roses and peonies and dahlias. So that was definitely a trend. I don't know if that's a trend for everyone, or maybe they're just seeking us out because we're a flower farm, but that's a big trend. And I was talking with another florist. I'm like, I have been trying to push brides on like a mono, not a monochrome necessarily color-wise, but a mono variety bouquet. Bride has bridal bouquet, and maybe she has 5 bridesmaids, and one is carrying Lysianthus, and one is carrying Cosmos, and one is carrying dahlias. It is. And I do have a few that that said yes. And
I can't wait to see the photos for that. Because I've seen that, and even like where they've matched their dresses to the variety of flower, and I'm like, oh, that is so aesthetically pleasing.
I know,
so good.
I know, yeah. So that is my.
That's so exciting
this year.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a very colorful year.
Yes, that's gonna be so exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming out here and being here. We just really appreciate you, and you're one of our favorites.
Likewise.
So we're so glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.